Nothing screams power more than quaking the ground you stand on with your own feet and fists, landing haymaker after haymaker until all targets in front of you fall down and they stay down. What's going on, Babylonians? It's me, Songs of Rays, and today we're going to be having a dive into everything you need to know for the Berserker class that's in Superfuse, the new looter RPG by Stitchheads Entertainment. Now in this video we're going to be looking at all the skill trees for all three subclasses currently found for the class, what fuses are unique to the class and how you should look to be able to gear them up to be able to take on everything that comes your way. We will be doing a lot more guides for Superfuse, including builds for each of the classes in the future, so if you want to see all of this and more, make sure to hit that subscribe button. But enough of all of that, let's get the video started. Now the Berserker class is one of 3 playable characters found in Superfuse for the time being, and is the only one with all 3 talent trees right out of the gate, allowing players to mess about with up to 3 different starting skills and talent trees. Brute Force is the first, focusing more on damage output with bare fist or knuckle duster type weapons to gain additional bonuses when you go into combat. Now skills may vary but are more found being around the front and centre of a team composition, allowing you to be able to take hits and deal damage where others cannot. Power Punch is your first skill, throwing a large fist projectile a small distance in front of you to deal damage in a radius in front, are perfect for dealing with more than one enemy at a time. Provoke is the next skill that you'll earn, acting as a taunt mechanic, which while lackluster in solos would work wonders in co-op modes, drawing enemies to you rather than towards your squishier teammates. Slam is your next unlock, adding a new damage move to your arsenal, benefiting from a projectile, a melee skill, as well as a weapon skill, allowing all kinds of combination with fuses to be able to make a damaging and very versatile skill. Now we will be looking at fuses a little bit later to be able to explain how these all kind of come together to be able to make your skills so much more intuitive and damaging out there in the battlefield, but for the time being we're just going to be having a look at the skills. Now Leap is basically what it says on the tin, an ability to be able to help you get around, out of a sticky situation, or even in an offensive manner to be able to deal large amounts of area effect damage. Unlocked late on in the skill tree, you may find better skill combinations to be able to use out of all these before you do reach this level, but it can still be a nice skill to be able to use even at low levels. Moving on to the combat is the next tree. Now the next tree is one I've primarily used so far, being a nice balance between offensive skills to deal with hordes at a time, and a really useful shout ability to be able to help teammates with less health than yourself. Now starting at level 1 you have Frenzy, a fairly fast attacking skill that uses a combo mechanic to switch from a small area effect attack to an all-around hitting ability. The first 2 hits are right in front of the Berserker, with the third follow-up shot being a swing around the whole body, hitting targets front, back and to the sides, which is very useful when you're surrounded. I found this to be a really effective damage dealer, one you can use regularly to hit hordes and bosses alike. Next up we have the Rally skill, and what this is one that benefits you as well as your allies with at standard a flat 50 HP increase to your max HP, and offering a 50% energy recharge speed, allowing players to throw out abilities much faster and more often. It's worth keeping this shout up as much as possible and keeping allies close so they can benefit as well. The 50 HP stat is a real lifesaver at times too, allowing you to be able to tank hits you otherwise wouldn't have survived. Heavy Strike is a single melee strike dealing damage, a chunk of damage at one time, not offering any kind of flexibility compared to Frenzy, as it doesn't allow you to be able to hit more enemies towards your sides. But think of this ability as more of a boss killer, a single target DPS compared to Frenzy, allowing you to do a nice single target damage compared to be able to spread it out to multiples of enemies. And lastly for the time being we have Tornado, an area effect damaging ability turning you into a wrecking ball of destruction, spinning around the battlefield, damaging all that get too close. This could be a nice alternative to Frenzy if you do choose to spec into this instead, but once again, just similar to how we have with Brute Force, it's unlocked late on level wise, so you may stick with what you already know over this. And then lastly we have the Lightning tree, now one that's a bit more catered towards spell damage, offering some kind of offensive and defensive utility to you and your team. First up we get the Lightning Bolt, a range skill offering chip damage at a fairly fast cast speed. This can easily be specced into multiple bolts per cast or kept as a more damaging single bolt, and is once again a fairly versatile skill to change up on based on depending on the situation and need. Now shortly after that you'll unlock the Energize skill, the most offensive base shout available to the Berserker, allowing you to increase your DPS with a small boost to spell damage, with higher tiers of the ability adding even more base damage on top of that. Now this will be the one I'll be keeping a close eye on the most, as with it being an early unlock in this tree, it allows it to be combined with other trees for an extra bump to DPS for most classes. Then next up we have the Lightning Shield, an ability granting you a projectile absorbing shield that can be aimed towards oncoming fire, protecting yourself and your teammates from the damage. Now this will disable any attacking moves that can be used during it being up, but it also can be modified with fuses to have a chance to be able to deflect projectiles, allowing it some form of offensive capability. And then lastly for now we have the Thunder skill, which is almost a slam but is charged with lightning, allowing it to be modified through spell damage fuses, allowing it to be a little bit different kind of combinations compared to the previous leap ability that we have discussed for brute force. Whichever your tree, always remember you can put points into the other talent trees, granting access to their respective skills. This means you can have access to all 3 shouts for the aggro drawing tank that buffs their own health and teammates alike, while dealing lightning increased blows for DPS. Whatever you pick, go wild in what the Berserker has to offer. If I was to suggest the best talent tree to go into to start your Superfuse journey, the combat tree has a nice offense and also boasts nice survivability to boot. Now when it comes to fuses in game, which we will cover a little bit more in depth with another video down the line, you'll want to set out how you want your skill to act and what it needs to do effectively before sticking any fuses into the slots. Utility mods like Fork can be, for example, useful for crowd control, but then limit the skill's use for single target DPS for bosses, for example. Alternatively, adding in a stun mechanic to your skill means less damage on a hit, and while this might be a minuscule amount to begin with, adding more negative damage fuses can really stack up and hit the killing potential hard. But fortunately for the Berserker, they have access to some of the nicest DPS increases possible in the game in the form of strikes. Now each strike is specific to an element, allowing you to do toxic, ice, fire and lightning damage, which acts as a flat damage increase to each cast of the skill. Now while each of these acts as a different element, the real difference hides in the damage it offers, with some being a bit more consistent than others, allowing you to decide if you want a higher damage potential or a more consistent feeling output. None does this speak more true than the Ice Strike Fuse, granting a flat +1 damage to min-max values per character level. In contrast, we also have the Lightning Strike Fuse, which grants anywhere between a +0 to a 2 damage to the skill, meaning it has a chance to offer nothing DPS wise, or maybe even double that of the Ice Strike mod. In between this we have the Poison Strike offering a +0.8 to 1.3 per player level, and the Fire Strike that offers a 0.5 to 1.5 damage per level. Now while most of the time it will be down to what fuses you have found and your fuse capacity, in higher levels and with more playtime it will pay for you to decide which trade-off you're comfortable with. Personally, I'm a fan of the Fire and the Poison Strikes, but feel free to experiment with the fuses on offer to you. Other fuses of note to consider for your skills will be things like add physical damage, boosting up the vast majority of your skills for the damage they inflict, so make sure to find yourself a nice 20% mod for the maximum effectiveness, or the stun and the crush mods helping with some more stubborn hordes of enemies, with stun giving you the opportunity to get more swings in with less damage coming your way, and crush being a really effective way to help with area of effect damage, especially for skills that struggle in that department. It's still early days for builds and best ways to be able to fuse correctly, but you cannot go wrong with any of the above. Lastly, let's have a look as to how to gear up a Berserker and what you should be looking for when it comes to stat-wise. Now the primary attribute you should be looking for in all gear is going to be your strength. This stat increases your physical damage and your armor by 1 for every point you have in here, meaning more damage output and more resilience as you start to fill this up. This can be increased throughout the talent tree and also from the gear you equip, allowing you to be able to push these numbers higher the further that you level up. Reflexes also isn't a bad second stat to work towards, as this helps with evasion, but more importantly accuracy, allowing you to be able to land those deadly hits needed to be able to mow through mobs. Now while it isn't crucial to spec into this, it's a nice bonus when you can find it and you can also equip it. As the forefront of every battle, it's important to have the tankiness needed to take the damage in the first place, meaning armor and resistance should also be factored into your build, and even more so as you progress through the endgame. Armor directly counters the damage you'll be taking from physical attacks, while resistances will protect you from certain damage types, especially like flamethrower enemies who can easily melt through your HP bar like a hot knife through butter if you're not careful. And the last categories outside of weapon damage, for obvious reasons, would be to find some sort of life leech and bonuses to your max HP. Having more HP lessens the chances of death, with even the biggest of mobs around you, with percentage-based increases seemingly to benefit from the rally shout stacking up for even more HP on top. For example, If I try to activate my rally being at level 3, it says it gives me 100 bonus HP, but when using the skill, it now gives me an additional 280 HP boost, essentially giving me an extra 66% of my resting health pool, which is extremely powerful. As for skill Life Leech, this combined with all the other stats is how you stay healthy, even with enemies all around, and saves using charges of your healing potions, freeing up some slots for more utility-based pots. As you have abilities that can cleave or hit multiple enemies, you can heal from each of those hits, meaning a single cast of an ability takes a simple 3% life leech from one enemy and multiplies it by 5 to 10 or even more enemies if you train groups into a location in front of you. This amount of leech will mean you will never fall down and stay healthy in every single fight, and is only limited if you face a boss one-on-one. If you look for these stats or any mixture of stats together, your Berserker will thank you and you'll have an easier time in the battlefield. And there you go, that pretty much wraps it up for a beginner's guide to the Berserker class. So now we want to hear from you. Is this the class that you can see yourself playing? And if so, which talent tree will you be starting out with? All have their uses, and I can see some fun combinations being made at higher levels with cross-talenting. Massive thank you for making your way to the end of this video. If you want to see more from us at Babylon, then make sure to click that subscribe button so you never miss out on a future video. We also have a Discord and would love to get people build theorizing over there with us for Superfuse, and that link along with all of our other social channels can be found in the video description below. Massive thank you to the Babylonian family, and as always their names appear at the end of every single one of our videos, and with all that out of the way, it just leaves me to say, keep yourself safe, keep yourselves well, and we'll see you all on our next video.